In 2025, Airbus delivered its 743rd A320 family jet, passing Boeing's 737 to become the most delivered airliner in history. It started with a consortium that couldn't even get its own government to pay for the tools. This is the story of how Airbus beat Boeing's 737 monopoly. Not with a single plane, but with a playbook of deliberate, high-risk bets that Boeing never saw coming. And the winning move wasn't technology. It was a business decision made 40 years ago. To understand the scale of the upset, you have to remember how dominant the 737 was. For decades, it was the default choice for airlines worldwide, a proven, reliable workhorse. Boeing's monopoly wasn't just a lead, it was the assumed state of the market. Airbus was the underdog. A European consortium so unproven that in 1984, the British government refused to fund the tooling for the A320 program. They'd only agree to £50 million up front, whether the plane ever flew or not. The rest would be paid as a levy on each aircraft sold. Here's the part nobody talks about. The A320 didn't start as an Airbus project. In 1977, British Aerospace, Aerospatiale, Dornier, and Fokker launched the jet program at Weybridge, UK. It was a separate collaboration, run by former aerospace executive Derek Brown, that only later transferred into the Airbus structure. The consortium was also deeply divided. Germany's Lufthansa pushed hard for a four-engine quad-jet design. They even wanted to explore prop fan technology, an unproven engine concept. Airbus rejected both, betting instead on twin-engine turbofans and the emerging digital fly-by-wire technology. The fly-by-wire gamble was massive. Airbus was betting its entire narrow-body future on digital controls, technology with zero proven track record in commercial airliners. It meant replacing mechanical linkages with electronic signals, a radical shift that made pilots skeptical. But Airbus made another bet that was just as critical and far less talked about. They deliberately chose a wider fuselage. The A320's internal width was 3.7 meters, 25 centimeters wider than Boeing's 3.45-meter 737. It meant a heavier airframe, but also wider seats and a more competitive cabin. This is the repeatable playbook move. Airbus wasn't trying to out-Boeing Boeing. They were redefining the product category. The wider cabin gave airlines a tangible, passenger-facing advantage, a better economy-class experience that the 737 physically couldn't match without a full redesign. The A320 program launched on March 2, 1984, with 96 orders. That was the seed. Air France had signed a letter of intent 2 years earlier, in 1981, for 25 firm jets and 25 options. But it was the initial order book that got the project green-lit. The program cost was staggering for a struggling consortium. Flight International estimated it at £2 billion, about $2.8 billion in 1984 dollars. For companies that had nearly been shut down after weak A300 sales, this was an existential commitment. The original design work even accounted for an entire family. The team was working on SA1, SA2, and SA3 studies, covering 125 to 180 seats. They didn't know it yet, but they were producing the blueprints for the A319, A320, and A321. The A320 first flew on February 22, 1987. It entered service with Air France in April 1988. But the real validation came from across the Atlantic. In October 1986, Northwest Airlines placed an order for 100 A320s, a major U.S. carrier betting on the unproven European airframe. Panama Am followed in 1985 with 16 firm orders and 34 options. These early U.S. orders were the credibility play. They proved the A320 wasn't just a European experiment, it was a global contender. The irony? Pan Am would be defunct by 1991, never operating the jets it helped make viable. Here's the strategic lesson. Airbus understood that beating a monopoly requires more than a better product. It requires creating a coalition of the willing, early adopters who have a vested interest in the challenger's success. Northwest and Pan Am weren't just customers, they were proof points. The family strategy compounded the advantage. The stretched A321 launched in 1994, the shorter A319 in 1996, the smallest A318 in 2003. One cockpit design, one pilot pool, one set of training procedures. Airlines could mix and match variants while keeping costs low. All subsequent Airbus cockpits were designed to be similar to the A320. This was a moat Boeing couldn't easily breach. Once an airline invested in A320 pilot training, the switching cost to Boeing became enormous. It locked in customers for decades, but the decision that cemented Airbus's dominance was still 22 years away. In December 2010, Airbus announced the A320neo, the new engine option. With more efficient turbofans and sharklet winglets, it promised up to 15% better fuel economy. The Neo was a masterstroke of timing. Airbus was re-engineering a proven airframe with new technology. It was a lower-risk evolution than starting from scratch, but it put Boeing in an impossible position. Develop a brand new plane, or rush a 737 update to match. Boeing chose the rush. The 737 MAX was their response. A quick re-engine of the 737. But the decision forced them into a corner, designing a larger engine that didn't fit well on the old airframe, leading to the MCAS system. We know how that story ends. Meanwhile, Airbus was localizing production. Assembly lines in Tianjin, China since 2009 and Mobile, Alabama since 2016. It was a deliberate strategy to sidestep political objections to European subsidies by creating jobs in the world's two biggest aviation markets. The numbers tell the story of the long game. The A320 family overtook the 737 inches total fleet size in 2017, in total orders in October 2019, and finally, in total deliveries in September 2025. It took 41 years, but the underdog finished first. Today, over 20,000 A320 family aircraft have been ordered. More than 375 operators worldwide fly them. The global fleet has completed over 176 million flights. Indigo alone has 930 on order. American Airlines operates 489. The scale is almost incomprehensible. So what was the winning playbook? Airbus didn't out-engineer Boeing. They outpositioned them. The wider cabin, the fly-by-wire gamble, the family strategy that locked in pilot training, the Neo that forced Boeing into a defensive, rushed response. And the political strategy? Localize production in your competitors' home markets. Turn their own customers into your stakeholders. Make it politically impossible for their government to attack you without attacking jobs in their own country. The transferable lesson is this: monopolies aren't broken by better specs. They're broken by reframing the value proposition so the incumbent strengths become irrelevant. Airbus didn't build a faster plane. They built a wider, more flexible, more politically entrenched one.